figure something out.
I mean, I'll submit it. Are you gonna be the male or the female hero? That's the
Um,
question.
I'll do female. It's fine. I'll
Great.
wing the Selva skips.
I don't even line up for those anymore. I nail
Yeah.
them lately. I do not. I don't know. I always feel like I'm gonna get stuck, and I immediately get through Selva like every time. It is the most exciting moment of every Faerie run. I pop off when I get through Selva. All right. Name your character, whatever the people want. That
English.
I got my litter robot behind me turning. And yes, I did start recording.
Okay. Go ahead and start recording. Playing as the female. Make sure I'm selected on the game. Just go with normal name L.
I switched my normal name from P to @. It's been good.
Is that your good luck charm now?
It's my wife's like name, nickname thing. So I just use it, and it's worked for me. Good luck. Unless I'm trying to get Levantine, but that's
Yeah.
not what this is about.
All right, I'm ready when you
when
are.
No, that's what I said. All right, I'll count us in then.
All right.
3, 2, 1, go. Where does home go? Left. All right.
Default. One left. Yeah, one left.
All right.
Sorry.
We will talk about the game after we place home. Just this moment.
And we are
There
off.
we go.
So GDQ submission 2023. I am Lemur, and I'm joined by Fonus.
Hello, I am Fonus. I've been speedrunning Legend of Mana since for 2 years now, just since a little bit before the remaster came out.
And I've been on this game for almost 4 years now.
4 years.
On the PSX. So Legend of Mana, a little bit of backstory. Originally released on the PSX, retro action beat 'em up RPG with world building mechanics. And that's a lot of what this speedrun is going to focus on is the routing and creating a unique world, and then also our combat mechanics.
And today for the showcase, we are going to be going over one of our 3 any percent categories. So since we don't have any major sequence breaks in this game, our any percent categories are based on the major storylines that we have to complete in order to trigger the end game. And today we will be showcasing the Faerie story.
Yeah, so like Fonus said, there's 3 main storylines: Dragon, Faerie, and Jumi. Faerie is the second shortest. It's a little bit longer than Dragon, but it is the least RNG dependent and generally considered the best for racing.
It's also the only one we run in English.
Correct. We
And
can run any of the other categories in English, but it is a little bit slower.
And since I just did something a little embarrassing here, I'm going to explain why. We just discovered a new trick recently where we can skip animations when we place these artifacts, part of our map building, which saves a whole lot of time. But when I woke up, Lemur, I was still holding L1 and I walked away from the bed.
Oh, whoops.
Just needed a little backstory as to why I was holding L1. It's a little awkward.
So yeah, the discovery of L1 is something that we should probably talk about. So very recently, we discovered, I mean, Fono said there was no major sequence breaks in the game, but we finally found a minor animation skip in the game. And only in the remastered version, if you hold L1, you can skip the animations of the artifacts as you place them. So if you play this game casually, when you place an artifact, it has a really cool little animation it'll play, and then you can go in and do what you want to do in that artifact. But by holding L1, we can just skip that and save 10 to 20 seconds each time, or up to 40 seconds on some of the long ones.
And if you have your default controls on, holding L1 makes you walk. which is
Yeah, that
slow.
was one. I'm glad I switched up.
All right, so yeah, now that we're moving around a bit, you might notice a lot of wiggling. Our biggest movement mechanic in this game is zigzagging, which it allows us to move a lot faster. Can you explain that a little more in detail as to why or how to get a perfect wiggle?
Uh, so I guess like a little bit more about wiggle running. Part of the reason why it's so faster is it repeats the start of your running animation, which for some reason is just a little bit quicker than the middle parts of your running animation. So by changing your direction back and forth like that, you just repeat the start of that animation. And I guess a perfect wiggle would just be pretty much every frame rotating between two different angles to restart that animation every time over and over and over again. We as humans obviously aren't that good, but most of us have gotten a pretty decent hang at getting a pretty good wiggle going. It can be a little bit challenging though, trying to keep yourself going the right direction if you're going really, really fast and hard at it. Because if you get caught on something, it's going to pull you to the side or it might pull you back into a loading zone. So you kind of have to judge sometimes when maybe you don't want to be wiggling at full tilt.
Yep, I am messing up all of my dialogues right now. Talking to people extra times.
Yeah.
All right. So now that we have our first two lands, we're going to finally start our first event. It's not specific to the Faerie storyline, but we do have to clear some events to unlock more lands to get us where we need to be going. Our first event here is Nicolo's Business Unusual.
Yeah, so entering into the highway here to do Nick's one, or Nick Business one, we are going to see one of the main bread and butter combat mechanics, which is spin attacks. So you'll see Fonus and I are going to try to space ourselves pretty closely between all the enemies on screen, and then just do that spin attack over and over and over again. It's one of the very few multi-hits we actually have in the game, and it is one of the biggest skill checks in the game. So if you are too close to those enemies, you will actually start to dizzy them, and if you dizzy an enemy too many times, you will then dizzy yourself.
Like I
So,
just did.
yeah, so it's really about threading that needle and finding the exact spot to hit all of the enemies at the same time.
I'll tell you what, my money is great. I have 2 clear feathers already.
Nice.
More than you need. Alright, and now you can see when we get to the 4th fight, we're going to use our first special technique ability. We won't use too many of these, but when you see the little blue bar underneath our health there, when it fills up to the top, we have the ability to use what is called a special technique. This is a more powerful move that has a little bit of a channel time, and in this case, we will be using an area of effect one to clear out healthier enemies.
All right, so I'm just now entering the boss room. Have a couple of Chobin Hoods here who are going to try to shake us down for some cash, but once we decide not to give them anything, they call their master to deal with us. And if you've played Secret of Mana or any of the other Mana games, I'm sure you will know the Mantis Ant. Pretty standard first boss for us to deal with here. The main thing to look at that I'm doing here is something called jump canceling. So you'll see I'm doing an attack and then immediately following that up with an uppercut. So essentially what that is I'm starting a heavy attack and then canceling the end of that animation with the jump button, which allows me to do that little double swing attack, which normally I'm not allowed to do.
Ah.
You get an ST as well?
Yeah. Oh, you did too? Yep.
Yeah.
That was like 3 hits away. I spun too early to try and stagger the STs.
I was mashing a little bit too hard and hit him with a couple normals to start the fight, so he kind of like backed up and then was just in a really weird spot to start.
So just like we have special techniques, so do all of the bosses. And one of our primary goals of the boss fight is to not let them use it, which takes a lot of managing our attacks between knocking them back and spinning to give them little mini stuns.
Mhm.
And as you see, we both got hit by one of these special techniques, so it's not easy to do.
And that's another part of the game that we'll probably get into with some of the later
Oh,
bosses is
definitely.
something called ST countering, as I like to refer to it as. So a big strategy is if you aren't able to hold the boss to 0 STs and they do get off their special attack, is you want to be able to time yours properly so that you can hit them when they come out of their attack. Because when you use an ST, or if a boss uses an ST, they have invulnerability. And you can't really do anything to them during that time, but it's very ideal for you to charge up your own special attack so you can hit them with it as they come out of their damage phase. If I can get around that nun there we go. Oops, wrong cell.
All right, and now we are getting to a very long and dialogue-heavy event that I dread. I mean, that I love doing. This is absolutely an ideal time for early donation reading and such, right? Because this event isn't actually related to Faerie either. This is a Jumi event.
Yeah, so this does kind of get into one of the main components of the game is unlocking an area. So
Yeah.
most of the artifacts, when you play some, have like an intro quest that you need to complete before you can actually get into any other quests that would be here. So there's a couple of quests that we could line up here, but they aren't going to trigger until we complete this intro quest.
Perfect. So yeah.
So we'll see this a few times, but this is the probably the longest and most tedious one. So real good spot for, yeah, like Fona said, reading of any donations or anything like that.
Yeah. Very very good point. It's a great time to talk about the intro quest before we hand it off to something like that. This is definitely a testament of wiggle running and not running into walls and
Yeah.
not re-entering loading zones. This map is all about movement and no combat.
Yeah, a lot of tight corners, and we have to go back and forth between, two ends of the map over and over again. So you can even see just on one player's end, maybe on one kind of lap around Gato, you'll see them do it really well, and the next time you might not see them, clear every room so perfectly. So a real good check of a runner's wiggling ability is how well they handle the Gato Grottos.
Yeah, there's one of these screens where sometimes I don't wiggle too much.
Yeah.
And cutting behind that little table here can be pretty tight to get to the sproutling on the cliff. If you run into the
Yeah,
edge
that
of
little
it, you run into the
tables.
edge of it, it can push you farther down, but you want to get above
Right.
it to make a nice little beeline to the sproutling.
Yeah, that's a little spot where sometimes runners might choose not to wiggle run because, yeah, like Fona said, if you mess it up, it's going to cost you way more time than it'll save.
Yeah. I think the worst part for me to wiggle run is the map transition to the left side. That's where I go backwards and re-enter the loading zone a lot between the
Yeah,
temple and the fork in the road. That's rough. I don't
yeah,
know.
any of
Wiggling
those
on those overworlds isn't as important, to be fair. So
mhm. But those are always some of the tougher spots to wiggle through typically, just because they are those like super tight little corridors, and if you're holding the wrong angle as you come out of that load, then yeah, you're just gonna slip right back into your old loading zone.
even more so if the Jumi category gets selected for this.
Yeah. So that's probably a good thing to mention is this
Yeah.
is our main, showcase for the race, the Faerie storyline, because we believe it's the best race category, but we'll also be submitting a couple videos for Dragon and Jumi just to kind of show you our PBs in that. It's two other categories, the two other any percent categories that we'd be more than happy to race as well.
Absolutely.
Dragon percent is the fastest of the three, but it's also the most RNG dependent. Does have a couple weapon drops we have to pray for, but we could set up a few safety saves if need be. And Jumi percent is the longest of the three, and it is the most story focused. But it also has some of the most unique fights in the game, I'd say.
Yeah, it also got a little bit shorter with the artifact skip lately, so
Yep, yep.
it's not too bad anymore. Um, and even to tack on to the RNG from Dragon, even though it is RNG heavy, I would say even with pretty bad RNG, it's still the fastest category.
Yeah, you'd have to have a.
It'd have to be really bad to get slower than either of these. But since it is RNG heavy, it's not necessarily race friendly.
Yeah, it's definitely the one of the three that a gap can form
Right.
between two runners if there's one person gets the drop and the other doesn't.
Within 20 minutes. So
Yeah.
But we've had some pretty tight dragon races too, so wouldn't rule it out. I'm going to hit a correct dialogue entry option. Most of our dialogue choices are just to reduce the amount of text boxes. Very few will lock us out or ruin a run. This category actually has, I think, the only one in the any percent that can just ruin your run, right?
Yeah, there is one dialogue that can completely lock you out of the Faerie storyline, and then there's a couple others that can make you lose a good little bit of time, but typically as long as you're aware of that dialogue and you shouldn't have too many issues. It's the first option you select to get through it, so
Thankfully, because a lot of the correct
Yeah.
options are the second.
right.
So, thankfully that's not the case here. I'm pretty sure I click defend here. Alright.
Yeah, spin and defend.
Trying to think and talk and menu. And this is one of the few encounters we get to skip entirely. We can hug a wall and get right past that moldy goo enemy. Which means we only have one fight to do in this entire event. We're going to fight a couple of slimes and a skeleton. And wouldn't you believe it, we're bringing back the spin attack. So that we can hit all three of them at once. That one we didn't hit right away, so it took a little bit longer to kill. And very shortly we will wrap up this long event that we used to unlock Gato so that we can do some Faerie storyline stuff a little bit later in the run. Just gonna wiggle through here.
Yeah, finishing up Flame of Hope here. Going to be going out and placing down the Ancient Tablet, which will give us the land, the Mendaz Ruins. This is probably a decent point to kind of talk about the land make system. So you see we've been, placing artifacts that we get as rewards. And, oops, almost did a misplacement there. And yeah, so we get these artifacts as rewards from quests, and they allow us to place new spots on the map. So the big things to keep in mind with this are the further away from your home something is, the stronger it typically will be. And also all the little mana levels you see on the bottom also affect the strength of monsters or the weaknesses of monsters. So if you have, too much of a mana that a monster is, strong with, then it'll make them stronger in that area, enough that it is weak to, and it'll make them weaker. So a big part of these maps is constructing optimal mana levels while also being, close enough to the house that it doesn't up the levels as a lot as well.
Yep, and it's things like that that even though the game's been out originally on the PlayStation 1 since 2000, we're still rerouting these categories. The route we're doing here currently, we just routed a few weeks ago as we discovered the artifact animation skip. So it just keeps, I don't know, it's very interesting. there's a lot to routing the any percent categories of this, because these mana levels and strengths and weaknesses, it's very complex and very fun, at least in my opinion. But luckily there's people like us who will do that for you if you want to get into running it.
Yeah, there's plenty of routes that you can follow already, but also if you're into routing yourself, I mean,
It's a
I don't
very
think too
interesting.
many games are as diverse as this when it comes to what you can do with the world make system and
Mhm.
what you can do with just the order you choose to do quests and everything like that. So even if you don't want to route something that's like any percent, if you just have a certain fun set of quests you want to do, you can route that in as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the person we have helping us do some routes right now, I found him just routing general maps to basically access everything in one playthrough, um, and just realized how knowledgeable they were at map routing, and it's given us some slight advantage in several categories lately,
Yeah.
and we'll take those slight advantages in speedrunning. Okay, so in this event, you will see that we are talking to a lot of little flower lane people.
Oh yeah.
They are the keys to the gates. So we're basically solving a puzzle while we run around the Mindas ruins. As you notice, there are some pathways where there are gates in our way, and we can't run through gates. So we have to go find the keys and talk to them so that they move to the correct positions to open or close the gates we need in order to proceed to the end of the event. Uh, this is one of the, in my opinion, worst RNG places in the game because those little flower characters will run in front of you and make it very hard to move.
And casually, this is one of the places that I think people have the most issue with, just because figuring out the gate puzzle is kind of unintuitive,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it does feel pretty nice as a speedrunner to just blast right through it.
yeah, definitely. When you understand the puzzle and know the solution, it's pretty fun. I can't, I can't imagine how long this probably took me when I was a kid. Right.
I'm getting into the boss here of Tea Time, Davila, and this is where we can introduce another little bit of speed tech called power canceling. So I kind of explained jump canceling, how I was canceling the end of an attack to do an uppercut. Well, I'm going to cancel the end of a heavy attack to do anything I want now. We found that by pressing a shoulder button that is unassigned after using a heavy attack, you can skip the ending lag of the heavy attack. And normally it's about a second and a half, 2 seconds of lag, but if you just time this out, you can repeatedly do heavy attacks at about the rate you would do normal attacks.
The only problem with this particular boss is they can start casting spells, and that will add some lag to the remaster, which
Yeah.
can impact your power canceling. Or if you're me, you just buffer quick attacks out of your text mashing, and that made the start of this boss very poor. Ooh, that was bad. So we got Dalvila right where we want him, and we will be catching up shortly. And there's that lag I mentioned. If you see the little spell animation come out, it can impact your power cancel timing with lag. Okay, we got it. We got it. We did not get a glove drop. That is the one, the fight before that boss is the one place where we're hoping to get a specific drop. It can make the next section a tad bit faster if we get a glove weapon. But it's about a 1 in 8 chance, so we don't rely on it in this category.
Yeah, we had mentioned before how in like Dragon Percent we do have to rely on those drops, but here in Fairy they're a nice little addition. They can save some time, but typically not end of the world if you're not able to get
I've never had it.
it. Yeah, some people are definitely luckier than others when it comes to that drop.
Not gonna name any runners who gets it
Yeah.
every time I watch them, but you know. Alright, so we are returning to Gato. We unlocked this land, so now we have access to an event, Nicolo's Business Unusual Part 2. We're using this so that we can get a specific artifact a little bit early from him, called the Junkyard. Or the Broken Doll, which unlocks the Junkyard. This event's very quick. We're just bringing Niccolo to the waterfall. He wants to collect green ball gums, which are buns, buns, which are a delicacy in this land. So we just gotta wait for him to pick, and then talk to a fairy. It's gonna be a very short event compared to what you've seen so far.
Yeah, this is just an event we do because we want to get this artifact, Broken Doll, for the junkyard, like Bonus was saying. And this is just the quickest way to do it. It's right where we already are, so hop in, do a quick little event, get the junkyard, and then keep going.
Yep. Just one of those cases where you route in the fastest event because in order to beat the game, not only do we have to complete a full main storyline, such as Faerie, but we also have to have 18 artifacts placed. So we do have to tie in a few extra events here and there to make sure that that happens. So we definitely want the fastest ones, and not only is that a very fast event, but unlocking the using the junkyard to get more artifacts is also a pretty quick event. So it works twofold.
Definitely, probably the two most value quests you can do in the game just for artifact yield and how long they take.
And this menu can actually be done anytime. I just put them in the same spot because that glove that has to be after the first encounter. So, just gotta do a few things. I'll still do it here, just keep my brain in order.
Yeah, so kind of talking about the different skills we're equipping right now. Legend of Mana has a point-based learning system for these skills. So you saw at the beginning of the game, we equipped Spin and Jump. And then once we got into Gato, we equipped Defend. And essentially how it works is if you do a fight with an ability, then you get a point in that ability. And to unlock certain other abilities, you need to get a certain number of points. So for instance, we have Counterattack there. We needed to get 8 points in Defend to unlock Counterattack. We also equipped a couple new STs. Maelstrom, we needed, I believe, 6 points in Spin, and Cutting Bamboo, I think it was like 4 points in 2 Jump.
It's 2 or 4. I don't know which it is for the one-handed sword. Some weapons only need 2 on jump, some need 4, but it's not many. We have it.
Yeah, that's another big part to our skill equips. It's not just for the raw value we get out of combat, but also the different abilities we can learn from it and equip later on.
And on this junkyard boss fight, you'll see us utilize Maelstrom because it is a pretty powerful area of effect ability, and the Cutting Bamboo is a very good ability for countering boss STs, as Liam mentioned earlier, because it does a decent amount of damage and also stuns the boss. So you'll definitely be seeing that on a couple of these trickier boss fights later.
So right here, I'm heading into Popolta to upgrade my sword. Oops, don't need to change that out yet. This is another effect of the land make system. So as I said, further away from your home, the stronger enemies will get, but also the better that shops will get. And so by placing Popolta this far out, we managed to just barely nab that tier 4 shop. And then we can upgrade our weapon. Instead of just getting a tier 3 upgrade, we can get a tier 4 upgrade.
And this is why the weapon drop we mentioned earlier wasn't too significant. It was only going to be used for about 4 fights, which does save time, but not enough to worry about it too much. Because we get to buy a new one right now. And now we get to go unlock the jungle.
Yeah, so starting off in the jungle, it's kind of similar to what we've had to do in Flame of Hope and also in the Mindad Ruins. We have a quest that we have to complete in order to unlock the jungle, and then once we complete this quest, we can get into more of the Faerie storyline that'll go on here. So big part of the first, little third of this run is just kind of opening up the world for us to explore and find the quests that we need to find. Or, you not want to get dizzied there.
And after this event, you'll start seeing us re-enter lands more often to start triggering the Faerie storyline that we've been mentioning. So, but in this event, we're off to help these poor unfortunate people hunt a beast called Ducate. Very scary bunny monkey. That's a good way to define him, right? A bunny monkey?
Yeah, I was never quite sure what he is. I would just assume they were some kind of rabbit, but
Yeah. I mean, there's a few of the arch type bosses. This one's more of a monkey. One of them's more of a bunny. One of them's more of a yeti, but they're pretty similar. I call them bunnies. On the bingo, they're classified as bunnies. I accidentally talked to Roanne twice because I bumped into her. Bad positioning.
and I just talked to the lion twice, so in the same boat there. I forget his name. Risotto? Risotti?
Rosioto.
Rosioto, okay. I
Right?
can never remember
I think
that.
it's Rosioto. Pretty sure.
I always say risotto, and I'm like, no, that's not right.
There is an I in there. It's Rosioto. Maybe it's pronounced Rosiato or something, but yeah. Rosioto is the spelling. And this is Hampson and Skippy. They're a comical duo. They truly are. They're great characters. I wish we could show off some of their other events. They're hilarious.
Yeah, you can find them in a few events kind of scattered throughout the world if you're to delve in a little bit more than just blasting through one storyline like we are. There are a couple of speedruns that support that. All Events, which is the big one, which does all of the events in the game, and also Platinum Percent, which will also do all the events in the game. But we unfortunately don't get to see much of them in this category.
I'll do an all events race.
Want to do an all events race? That might be a long submission video.
You got 6 hours? Let's do it.
I'll just call off of work tomorrow.
Yeah, why not? I won't do that yet. We're working on a new route for all events as well, so I'm waiting to run that back. That'll be a good time. I'm very excited for route changes for that. But back to the matter at hand, we are killing some zombies and tomato men. And I actually got a very good setup for that, and I was very pleased with that fight.
Nice. My fight was not that good.
That fight can be raw.
Yeah, I got ridden and then flattened, so had a unfortunate one.
It's one of the rare times that second zombie actually came to me. Usually he just stands at the top and wastes my time. Alright, so I was going to get dizzied there, but I did slightly move away to avoid dizzying myself. It's the kind of awareness and adaptability you need when you run this that I don't always have, but pleasantly surprised and nailed it. And we are moving on to the next boss of the game very shortly. This is Ducate, who we are hunting with Hampson and Skippy. He's going to swing on by on his vines and hopefully do nothing. Hopefully we don't let him do anything. That's the goal here. We're going back to the power cancel strategy that we used on the vampire boss. And I'm just going to focus here and hopefully nail it.
Yeah, usually a little bit easier to deal with than the vampire boss, Davila. Just because larger hitbox and doesn't move around as much. I'm not sure if you saw it on your screen at all, but sometimes Davila will just kind of zoom off to the side a little bit. She tried to do that on me.
Moved a lot for me because I buffered my basic attacks to start the fight and locked myself out of moving. And she wasn't nice. But now that we wrap up Hunt Ducate, like I said, we discussed unlocking the lands. So now that we did this first event here, we have a new event available to us here called Murmuring Forest. Which will get us going on this Faerie storyline, which I assume you already started.
Yep, just got back in. So we actually did a trigger for this event earlier as well, not just unlocking this land, but in order to continue, we had to get sent back to the entrance by the fairies earlier in Undecate. That wasn't just for a speedy reset, that's also because in order to continue this event, we have to do that at least once. And so after we get this event triggered, you're just going to see us zoom right into the fairies territory.
Just so happens that it's very convenient to do that. Teleport back to the entrance. Ooh, I almost didn't talk to Selkie. I don't know what I was thinking. I ran straight to the exit of that room. Alright, we're good, we're good, we're good.
The worst thing I notice is sometimes that hitbox on Selkie stays active for a little bit longer and you end up double talking to her.
That's what I did with Roan.
Yeah.
But if I left the room, I'd have to redo that fight, so thankfully I caught myself. I gotta go talk to Selkie up here now. And this will trigger the event.
Yeah, this event, the Murmuring Forest, is the first in the fairy storyline. And you don't learn too much from it here, but you just kind of see this. You kind of just get the basic feel that the fairies and nuns really do not get along for each other. If you were to talk to the paladin there named Escad, you'd learn a little bit more about what's going on, but not enough to really give you the full grasp of what's going on quite yet.
You do learn that the fairies have a very poor understanding about the lifespan of humans.
They make a comment about the age of someone being 26 instead of 500 or something like that, or
like,
26,000.
They go, didn't you hear the new one's a human? They live to be 500. You're like, do they? Alright, that fight was weird, but it worked out. Moving on. I had to greatly reposition my zombie and glue moth fight to not dizzy myself, and it worked. Ooh. All barrels down.
So coming into this boss here, we have the Punk Master, and he has a very similar strategy to Davila and Ducate, though I would say he is probably the scariest of the three, as if he gets away from you, he will most likely hit you with a dizzy, because he does not like it when you touch his hitbox. If you touch it, you just kind of lose control for a second, and he can get off any ability he wants.
I just got hit by the Tyrannos twice, and I hated that.
It's an annoying one.
Yeah, he started spinning me around. Alright, Punk Master, what is going on? Let's do this. Oh, and he hit me with a dizzy and knocked me across the screen, just like you were talking about.
Oh, sorry, jinxed you.
Thanks. I need it to happen to you. I'm like 30 seconds behind. So. Punk Master down. Oh, don't worry, we're getting to the worst boss fight.
Punk Master is one of the few bosses that's just a reskin of an enemy in the game. So, you'll see him later in this run, actually. The Punk Stir, which is a pink version of the Punk Master, is what you would typically fight, but there's a few enemies they reskinned, and he was one of them.
Okay, this is where we're going on to our third entrance to Gato.
Yes, third. Play with Hope, Nick 2, and now 2 torches.
Yep. This is the most common area we will see in this run is Gato. We have to come here for most of the Faerie storyline event triggers. And in this one, I don't want to spoil what's going to happen unless you already see it on Lemur.
I think we'll talk about the special guy once we get to him.
Yeah, don't want to spoil anything here.
I guess we kind of mentioned sequence breaking before and how this game doesn't really have anything like that. Except for this scene, the game kind of wants you to walk back up into the room here and follow this golden nun, but you can kind of just nope out of that and walk away. It's not like a sequence break and that we're doing any major glitch, just something the game kind of lets you skip for some reason.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the quote unquote skips we have are just things that weren't forced in the programming.
Yeah.
We just tested something. And we're like, oh, you don't actually have to do that. You know, it's not necessarily a glitch. It just doesn't make us do it. There's not a trigger that's required.
It's just always interesting when we find one of those because the
Yeah.
developers were really, really good at double checking all their bases and making sure they had everything covered.
Yeah, they don't
Been
like
quite a few
this.
spots that we have gotten clips, but then the loading zone doesn't trigger for some reason because the devs already knew we could clip through there 20 years ago.
There's one right there in that room in the temple. You can clip into the door when the nuns don't want you to go there, but you cannot trigger the loading zone to enter the room.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that would help us, but we can't even try.
I think I spent a solid hour trying to get through that loading zone at one
too.
point.
Me too. I've been trying to get past the nun at the bottom here for ages.
So, here we go. The special guy we were talking about, Spriggan. This is one of the big run killers in Faerie percent. Because of that, he just likes to ST sometimes, and if he does it right away, then you cannot use your ST to counter it. So you just kind of have to avoid him here, and then try to re-get my stun. The main strat I do is trying to just hit him up and then spin attack to keep him dizzied and keep him in place, because otherwise he'll do this evade attack like he's done 4 times now.
Yep.
Getting Dana to help here is a big plus. Oh, or he'll summon the skeleton guy. He's always fun because he eats your dizzy and makes you lose even more on your dizzy counter.
Now you mentioned if the boss Spriggan here,
Okay, there he goes now.
Or if this boss specifically STs right away, we can't counter it. And we didn't really mention that the ST meter only fills in combat for the land you're in, so it doesn't roll over when you leave. So that's why when we get to this boss, we haven't done any fights here. We can't ST early if he does. Man, I almost had it. I had a really good start. Alright, let's see if I can time this right. So this is a counter ST, which I missed, but thankfully Dana's helping me out. So the counter STs, the timing on it can be very tight. You have to know the animation of the ST very well to avoid it. Spriggan only did 1 bowling ball ST on me. I was very fortunate. Very, very happy with that fight. Would have been a little bit better if I landed my counter ST, but I will take that Spriggan any day of the week.
Okay.
That, a 1 ST Spriggan is honestly a pop-off moment. Let's go.
Yeah, good job.
Let's go.
As long as you didn't get about 4 or 5 evades like I did.
Not a single evade.
Nice, okay.
I put him in the corner. I put Baby in the corner. He bowled at me once, and I ST did not get hit, but I didn't land my ST.
So that's one of the big swinging points in the race is the difference between a good or bad Spriggan can really set up who's going to be in the lead,
Yeah, I'm sure it just helped me close the gap by 10 or so seconds. Alright, so we're making our first visit to Lake Kilma, where we'll finally see a different boss strategy. I guess we just saw a different boss strategy, but we'll see another different boss strategy. This is a little bit of a unintended sequence break, I guess. In the best way we can describe it. Instead of talking to the penguins in your way, you can run past them and talk to one of my favorite characters, Captain Tusk. And if you don't talk to Captain Tusk, you have to guess what the pirate's password is, and it just adds a whole lot of dialogue that's unnecessary. But the penguins are great. We've got a really comedic scene. You'll see a couple comedic scenes you'll see with them in this event. So it's kind of fun that we get to do this one. Even if it is just to unlock the lake for a different event.
Yeah, this event has a lot of fun shenanigans that go on with the penguin, but speedrun wise, it's one of the tighter ones. Like the execution on your spin setups here is a lot tighter than in most other areas in the game, I'd say.
Yeah. Okay. So I was purposely taking dizzies from one of those enemies just so I could hit all 3 of them. But if if one of the other 2 got too close to me, I would have stunned myself. So that's an example of how tight some of these fights can be. Why am I not talking to Toad? Okay.
And that's some of the reward you just have to make a decision on in the moment, you know? There are certain enemies that if they give you a good setup, you can hit all three of them, not getting dizzy, no problem. And with other setups, you kind of have to like monitor it and get dizzied by one of them. But if you can get the kill in 5 spins, then it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Yeah, because the way you know if you're going to get dizzied is by the amount of times you dizzy the enemy. And it counts for all enemies, not just one enemy. So if
Right.
you dizzy enemies 5 times in a fight, that fifth one is going to guarantee stun you as well. So that's kind of how we know we need to readjust or not. If we're hitting dizzy on 2 enemies or 3 enemies, we definitely need to just reposition ourselves like right away.
It's why we can't just run into the middle of a batch of 3 enemies and spam spin, because in 2 spins we'll have used up all 5 of our dizzy hits, and then we're just going to get stunned, and we've done pretty pathetic damage to the enemies at that point.
Yeah, if you didn't notice, these spin attacks don't necessarily do a lot of damage, but they are faster because we can hit multiple enemies. And for a little bit because we don't have to line up the hitboxes as much, and some of the hitboxes on enemies is less than forgiving. Some of them have some tiny hitboxes.
Yeah, especially some of these lake enemies, the tadpoles, the little tadpole guys you were seeing, and the spiny cones, the pine cone jerks that can hit you away or jump back if they want to. Those are 2 of the more annoying hitboxes. So having spin for a stage like this is really, really nice.
Absolutely. Was there a time when you did speedruns without spin in your 4 years?
When I first started, it was mostly just power cancels. That was the meta.
Yikes! I didn't.
We
I don't
had
think I
spin
did spins when
equipment.
I don't think I did spins when I started on the PS1, or not right away at least.
Yeah, it was power cancels and then jump cancels, and then kind of trying to like use them both at the same time, and then it became spin meta after that.
Yeah,
I mean, spin was used, but not like it should have been being used.
Right. Which is interesting to see the way the speedruns have evolved, even in the short time that I've been a part of the community. It's pretty fun. It's exciting. I love seeing new maps. I love seeing new tech. I try to do new tech all the time. It doesn't always pay off.
That's one of the really cool things about this game is we're still discovering stuff. You know, it's been
Yeah.
what 20 years since this game came out, and
Right.
like we're still discovering more and more things, both in the remaster and in the original.
Yeah. Like earlier, I know you mentioned the jump cancel, how you can only do it by having jump equipped, but there is a slower alternative where you can cancel by doing an uppercut plunge, because this game does have fighting-like controls. Where
Gorgonite time.
Oh yeah, good luck. Hold on, I'll just let you do that fight. Sorry. Talk about that.
I'm gonna focus and try to hit it, and then I'll talk
Okay.
about it.
All right, yep. Focus on that fight, and then talk about it while I'm doing it, because I'm going to start in a second. This boss can be tricky and also not very forgiving.
All right, there we go.
All right.
So, got quiet there to, focus and make sure I hit that, but you'll see Fonus attempting this now. The unique strategy we have for Gorgonite that doesn't really work on most other bosses is normal attacks. So, if you can chain together normal attacks or heavy attacks or anything that has that blue aura, you will eventually dizzy the enemy. And normally for speedruns, this doesn't do much for us, but with the Gorgonite, it actually keeps him in full stun lock if we just keep rapidly hitting the normal attack over and over again without completing a combo. If you complete a combo, it's going to put you into lag, and then that's not good. But if you can just hold the first 2 hits of that combo over and over again, you can keep him stun locked like that. And though it seems like a pretty, normal, easy thing to do, just hit 2 normal attacks, it's actually a pretty tight timing to keep him in that stun lock.
He got a star attack off on me and confused me, but that didn't matter. I didn't press any input, so I stayed in the same direction. Okay.
I forgot he can confuse you.
Yeah, he can confuse you, but it didn't matter. I got right back into the combo. I got it done. Because if you do drop that combo, he can teleport away, and when he teleports away, he can stay gone for like 10 seconds. He doesn't just reappear. And then he can also do some special techniques and waste more time, and it's a whole thing.
Yeah, until we found that hit stun combo, he was actually one of the run killers. Like it was Spriggan, Gorgonite, and then someone else you'll see a little bit later, but he was one of the three. And
Oh, we're
by
gonna see him
figuring out
pretty
that
soon.
normal attacks work, we annihilated one of the run killers. Well, I won't say annihilated because it is still a tight little thing to pull off, but if you
Much
can
more
hit it, it is
consistent.
consistent.
Much more consistent for sure. Anyway, like I was saying earlier, as far as the combat controls go, we have some like arcade fighting style combat, right? So if you hit forward forward power attack, you'll lunge forward and stab. If you hit a diagonal, you'll do an uppercut attack. Um, so a way we can also cancel our power attacks with these plunge attacks, is what they're called. But they are relatively slow compared to using a technique such as jump to cancel. So the jump cancel does the little second swing uppercut, but we could also do a plunge uppercut with a slower animation.
I guess you can consider them more of the dev intended ways to do a lot of these techniques we're doing. They were kind of meant to be finisher moves to combos as well. You know, you can kind of string together a few normal attacks, then do a heavy attack, and then do a heavy attack into a fighting game double plunge combo or something like that. You know,
Yeah, you can get
it's
pretty
kind of like,
creative, and it's
yeah,
just not necessarily the fastest.
yeah. Unfortunately, because of power cancel and jump cancel, they're not obsolete, but not used as much because, you know, jump cancel and power cancel will also cancel the lag at the end of those attacks, which is the big thing that gives them the advantage.
All right.
You can see this on certain weapons like the flail, where the jump cancel is just insanely fast, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean it's almost as fast as a normal attack, both hits.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think we'll use like the plunge attack to close the distance on a couple enemies here and there. Like I use it on the gray ox in the lake.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
can't. I'm not really
that's a
sure
great
where
one
else I
to.
use it in Faerie.
I'll occasionally use it on the eighth mummy if I don't feel like I have a good power cancel swing on it.
I use it on the mantis ant to start the fight a lot. But oh, I dizzied myself. What? Oh, that spiny cone walked up and gave me that fifth dizzy, like I mentioned earlier. I wasn't hitting him, and he took a step forward. All right, so we are making a second trip through the lake to see that third boss that Lemur had mentioned, who can really ruin your day. But we have found a blind spot for him that we're both gonna hopefully get, and if we do, the boss will become trivial. I say hopefully because it's not easy.
Oh, you're just talking about that ox. That's why you do plunges there. Otherwise, he'll plunge you.
Yes, I always plunge that ox.
That was a very light punish I got from him. If that ox wants to, he can just knock you around for a good little bit of time. But I'm greedy and like to at least start with a jump cancel. So, oop, almost messed it up there too.
I don't jump cancel nearly as much as I should. Sometimes I forget I have jump on.
It's normally all right to start the fight when you have invulnerability, but anything past that is just a risk.
Right. That's also a good point, is at the beginning of fights, we actually start with invulnerability frames, which can dictate how we start fights. Because there are some fights we'll be using a technique called Counter Strike, but if we're invulnerable to being hit, Counter Strike doesn't work. So we have to play those fights a little differently until we're vulnerable again, by playing a little bit more aggressive, I suppose. Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Oh,
or there's a few other fights where an enemy's, you know, directly in front of you and normally will hit you, but since you have the invulnerability, you can use that to position in between a few enemies before they can get any of their hit stun down onto you, giving yourself time to get a spin set up. All right, one more time through an ox.
yeah, the second ox licked me, spun me right around. So the second ox, because I start closer to him, that's when I go for a jump attack. It's always the first time you enter that room and you're far away, I always plunge. But this time I went for the jump attack. It wasn't lined up with the hitbox. Like I said, hitboxes cannot be very great. And then he licked me, spun me around, and had his way with me.
Right, here we are, the other run killer, the Boreal Hound.
Good luck.
Yep, let's see if I can hit this blind spot, but
If you don't,
one of the hardest things to hit, I'd say. And instant ST. Well, let's see if I can get a counter in. Electric, okay, I think that's good.
That boss
This is a tight one to hit.
Yeah, that
Okay,
boss's
barely got
ST counters are very tight because he likes to chain STs together or jump around the screen or whatever he wants to do. So if you don't land your
like an
ST...
ST.
Alright, come on, Ox. I can't even get to the Boreal Hound. This boss's name is Boreal Hound. He's very colorful.
Alright, 2 STs, but no jumping around or anything. And I got hit him with STs after each ST, so...
I'll show you what his blind spot
You're
looks
gonna
like.
hit it? Alright.
Yeah, I got it.
Here we go.
I got it. I missed the trigger to start the fight.
That's the trick, right?
Yeah. That's the setup. That's the manip. I have a setup, but it depends on what he does to start the fight. And he's ST. And I don't have an ST, so I'm going to run and then move this way so the lightning doesn't hit me. And then I think... he jumped. Alright, I need to uppercut him up. Up. Alright, I'm not blind. This is bad. Alright, second ST. Hopefully he doesn't do another one right away. I got the stun. I'm going to tap down a little bit and hopefully get into his blind spot when he gets unstunned. And this is a bad Boreal Hound. Alright, I'm going to do jumps and spins here. This is called adapting.
Yeah, I did it too. I gave up after the second ST. I was like, okay, spin time.
So if you hit the blind spot, you can just do the power cancel and defeat him very quickly. If you do not hit the blind spot, it's probably in your best interest to start doing some jump cancels and spins to do your best to stun lock him and keep him from doing more STs and jumping around. So at the end of that fight, I went for a couple of jump attacks, mixed in some spins, and we finished him off. 2 STs.
You managed to dodge the lightning attack that he does?
I dodged both attacks, yeah. The
Okay,
lightning
nice.
attack getting hit by stuns you, and that's what really kills a run.
Yeah, because it stuns you well long enough for him to do another lightning attack, and then he chains those together back to back to back. There's been some pretty rough fights that have been caught on film because of that.
Yeah, if you see the lightning attack animation starting, in my opinion, it's best to get as far away as possible, go to one end, top or bottom, and then once it starts coming out, you can move to the other side, and there's usually a pretty big gap if you're far enough away. And as long as you stay in that gap, you can start moving closer and try to get back on him as soon as it ends. Alright, so after this, you're making your way to the mines.
Yep, entered the mines just
pretty
a little
interesting
bit ago.
characters in the mines. Our friendly blacksmith is somewhere around there.
This is one of the stages you can kind of see the effects of how we placed our artifacts. So, in the lake, everything was a little bit stronger, but in the mines, things are going down pretty quickly. And, if you're paying attention, we placed this artifact very early on in the run, and this is one of the reasons is that if you have low levels here, you can just blast through these enemies. And we knew we were coming here, so we knew to set it up beforehand.
Yeah, and the biggest reason to make this one weak is the boss fight. Absolutely.
Ah, yes.
I know we mentioned 3 bosses that are run killers, but there's also this boss, who is kind of an auto-scroller. So affecting his level and his health bar makes the auto-scrolling faster. That being said, if he does hit you with his special techniques or magic, it is devastating in its own right and can very well ruin your pace or kill you.
Yeah, he's an auto scroller, but an auto scroller that can also decide to take an extra 5 to 10 seconds
Yeah,
sometimes.
it's a
Uh,
dangerous auto scroller.
yeah,
Probably the most dangerous auto scroller I've ever played.
if you're tight with your combos, you can hopefully, get a really good fight, but other times he'll just instantly attack you and there's not much you can do. So that was the little combo I tried to do there, two jump cancels into a forward plunge, and specifically on that red hand, because if that red hand starts doing his ST, he will kamikaze you, which does kill the red hand, but also means you have to sit there and wait for that kamikaze to finish. Or you can get hit by it, like that one. Now he's going to kamikaze, so I'll go ahead and use my ST.
It is a very large spell. So if you're not ready to move or ready to use your ST, it's going to hit you, and it hits you very hard.
Yeah, I think even at this low level, it'll still hit you for 70-80%. Oop, I just got an instant kill on that hand. So something we're not really sure how it happens, but if you hit that hand on either a decent frame or something like that, you will hear the kamikaze effect go off, and if you leave it, he will just die as he falls down.
Oh, I don't think I've ever gotten that.
I did not know about it until last year when Elevated randomly got it, and
Okay.
now occasionally it'll happen.
I don't think anyone's ever shared that one with me. Interesting.
Oh no? Oh, okay, I'll try to send you a clip of it.
I'm learning something. All right, so we
I'm
can start this fight with a spin. I'm sure Lemur did that. But oh no, come on, I'm bad. All right, I got the red hand. Anyway, we try to start the fight with a spin to knock off both hands and go for a quick kill on the red hand. But this boss can start the fight immediately with a spell, and that adds a tremendous amount of time to a already very slow boss. Okay, he's STing me. I get it. Blue hand knocked me towards him and ruined everything. Alright, I think I'm on a cycle where it's not even worth killing the red hand anymore. If you don't kill the red hand every time and the cycle gets off, I think you just finish the fight on the blue hand. And I will just... I hit him, but he still casted a spell. Interesting. Well, this is a really bad Leban fight. Alright, look at me go.
You get the thing where it didn't knock him off of the vine or whatever. Yeah.
I hit him with an attack. It didn't knock him off, but both hands just died at the same time to finish him. So that was kind of a cool synchro. Speaking of synchros,
I'm not 100% sure what causes him not to get hit off the vine, but that's another one of those things with Lebain where
he went right into a spell and didn't get hit off, even though he had the sound effect like I hit him.
Oh, okay.
So it was just, I don't know, very, very bad timing, I guess. Alright. So the event that Lemur's probably wrapping up right now is Pokio Dreamteller. This is the event in the run where there's a whole lot of background story for SCAD, but we're going to skip it because the game lets us say no.
Yeah, one of the events that you can just run back and decide, I don't want to do this. And it's actually one of the few events you can fail in this game, but failing it does not fail the storyline, so we fail it.
It lets us proceed to the next event, and no questions asked. And you've noticed we get to keep re-entering our events because we're unlocking them in the order that the Faerie event progresses. So we can just go straight back into the mines, start this event, and then fail it. And,
yep, another case of clearing that intro event, and then we can get to the Faerie event.
Yep.
Same thing we did for Kilma. I did clear Gorgonite, and then we did In Search of Fairies. Doing it there for Dreamteller.
Yep. And I'll let you talk about the penultimate Faerie event that you should be on your way to starting.
I actually got to do Starcrossed first, and then I'll be on my way to that event. But yeah, coming. Okay, I thought you meant the other penultimate event. No, but kind of coming into Starcrossed here is when we're kind of getting near the end of the Faerie storyline. Things are kind of starting to come to a head here, so Dana just essentially came in, wanting to take Matilda back to see Erwin. This has kind of been this whole struggle, is that Erwin's a demon who stole Matilda's powers. You would have learned that in Dreamteller. And Escad also was a victim of Erwin trying to steal her powers, and it ended up crushing Escad. He doesn't want Matilda to see Erwin. Matilda wants to see Erwin. Dana tries to help Matilda see Erwin, and Escad decides he doesn't like that and comes in to try to kill us, but Matilda decides to warp us out. And now, finally, Matilda and Erwin get to meet each other. They have this bit of dialogue, and we're going to kind of rush over here to see what we can do about it. Interesting thing about the Faerie storyline is it actually kind of lets you pick a side if you want to be pro Faerie or pro Nun, and you kind of get to see that come to a head here. So just going to kind of rerun through the Tea Time of Danger area of the Mendez Ruins, going in backwards though. This was actually one of the reasons we decided to do Tea Time so early, was that we needed this spot unlocked, and also Tea Time gave us a couple key artifacts that we wanted early on. So now, finally making our way back here.
And we will once again see a new boss strategy coming up.
Yeah, I'm just gonna make my way through these flower lanes and then throw on.
Hopefully they stay out of your way.
I managed to get a clip on that one, but now let's see. Flower lane 2.
I did the menu already. You can do it pretty much anytime.
Yeah, I just always done it here. And she wants to get in my way. Oh, there we go. Okay.
Get in his way more. Block him, block him, block him. I'm coming.
Alright, so there's supposed to be this big, like, kind of circle through the gates we have to go through, but instead we can just talk to Nicolo here, and he'll warp us. 500 Lucre, but not too much to pay.
Nicolo likes money. But
here's kind of the choice you get. Dana or Escad, who you want to be on their side. We are going to join Escad because it is fast. And this is when we get into the Counter-Strike strats. So you'll see here Dana is a humanoid with a very fast attack, and so we're just going to keep putting out this counter. And every time we hit her with that, it does 6 times our normal damage. It would be times 8 if we had a bigger weapon. Oh, she's not really being cooperative. There you go.
And guess what drop I just got?
Oh, you got the Spiral Claw?
Sure did. Could have used that earlier. It's the only time I ever see that item. It's on the way back. Alright. And I got a healing claw. For what it's worth. Really? This flower link turned into me right as I was about to go past her. She was staying still and I knew it was fishy. Alright. So you have to enter Gato one more time.
Yep. One last time into the Gate to Gratos. Hopefully we are right next to it.
I'm making you side with Dana from now on.
Yeah.
Siding with Dana adds quite a bit of dialogue. Oop, I forgot.
I don't want to say it's 30 extra seconds of dialogue. Maybe a little less than that. It feels really bad when you have to see that dialogue.
Yeah. I forgot to cancel my Counter-Strike on the first one. So, just like you can cancel the power attacks by using a unassigned special technique slot, you can cancel counter attacks, which is very nice because that animation can lock you up for a little bit, just like the power attacks can. And it can help you readjust and prepare for the next attack.
Yeah, it was a little minor optimization that I don't think we knew about for quite some time.
I found out like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So I was in the dark about that one.
I feel like it was when the remaster came out. I think Mono discovered it.
Nice. Okay, so we get to do a very large dump of artifacts, which is very fun. And we don't have an artifact dump this large in any other category. This category was routed in a way where we get primary artifacts only after a certain point. So the way you get artifact rewards is you'll always get what is called a primary artifact as a reward from an event. But some events also have a secondary artifact. And if you already have 4 artifacts that are unused, you will not get the secondary artifact. It'll be replaced by a material or money in most cases. But yeah, the way we routed this event, we get all the secondary artifacts we need out of the way as early as possible. So then from then on out, we're only gathering primaries, which lets us stack up to 7 artifacts, which we will all drop at once. And then we put down 1 more to hit the 18 that I mentioned earlier, to hit the requirement to trigger the end game.
This is very satisfying to do with L1.
With the animation skips, it's very satisfying. Yes. This alone would take a couple. I don't know how long would this take to dump.
2 to 3 minutes, I guess. Yeah, something minutes. Like that. Yeah.
Oops, I'm not talking to Matilda. I'm busy talking about artifacts. Anyway, yeah, it's pretty satisfying to dump them, and we have it we dump them in a way to weaken the final Faerie dungeon, and then we just dump them in the order that they appear.
And then also saving the very last dump, Lumina, because it is another town that has a weapon shop. So we weaken the final area, dump all of the artifacts that hit our 18 requirement, and then make the shop as strong as possible so we can get gold weapons before we go into this final dungeon. Well, final story dungeon, that is.
Yes. And we are weakening this land by placing artifacts that provide the mana levels we discussed way at the beginning of this run to weaken most of the enemies there, just to make that final story dungeon a little bit easier. And the reason some bosses still feel pretty dangerous is because we're not really gaining a lot of levels during this, so our health and defense stats are not going up. So it is still very imperative, like, despite the fact that we get strong weapons, that we don't get ruined if we mess up any normal encounter by enemies just being strong.
Yeah, that's why fights like Boreal Hound and Lebane can be so scary, because if they do hit you, it's going to hurt, and in Lebane's case, might just kill you outright.
Yeah, I think Lebane, even at that weak level, will do about 70 or 80%. It's scary. You get hit twice and you're dead, for sure. And the event we're doing now, which we both should be on, is done in every category of the game. It is the only event done in every category, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Where we will go to Lumina and help Gilbert help Monique by selling lamps to our friends, the Dead Bears. And in order to do that, we first have to learn how to speak to them, because they have their own language.
And you can go through and do the whole translations, or you can just learn the order in which to select your text.
I don't know what you mean. I'm fluent in Dub Bear.
You're fluent in Dub Bear?
I'm fluent in Dub Bear. I mean, this bartender has to teach me every time I play, but I'm fluent. Dub-ba-ba-ba-ba, da-da. Bub? Dub. See? Nailed it. We sell 2 lamps, and then we're going to spend their money. That's the best part. We're going to spend their money to buy some better weapons.
Yeah, that's one of the big reasons that this quest is done in...
The Dead Bear's in my way.
In every category. Oh no. Dub Bear nightmare happens to everyone.
Oh boy. Alright, I'm going to buy a sword and a hammer.
So we were complaining about it with the flowerlings, but the Dub Bears can do it to you as well, where if they get in those corridors and you need to get past them, sometimes they will just hold you hostage for as long as they see fit. You can clip through NPCs, but it's very annoying to do unless they are walking at you. And even then, sometimes if it's a weird angle, you might not get the clip.
Yeah, I tried. I was walking and wiggling, and I couldn't get through him. He just stopped in front of the table and didn't let me.
They'll stop in front of that table and just walk down into it over and over and over again, and then there's not much you can do besides just keep running at them and hope they either move out of your way or move into you and give you a clip.
I forgot to put jump on. I do want jump for this event. I'm gonna put that on before I forget.
Spirit's Light, or Faerie's Light as it was originally called. But we do have one more artifact to place, that's right. Now we've hit our 18 trigger.
Yep. Yeah, Faerie's Light lets us buy tier 5 weapons because it gives us money to afford it and unlocks the shop for it. And it gives us that 18th artifact, and it's a pretty quick event. So it just fits into every category very smoothly. And the one category where we don't use the money, we need it for that artifact specifically. It's the only way to get it.
Yeah. Yeah, the money's a big part in everything except for Dragon Percent, which... Dragon Percent, we have to do it because of the Trembling Spoon, which for some reason you can only get from that one event.
Mm-hmm. So instead of doing this an hour and 10 minutes in, we'd be doing it about 10 minutes in. So, it's very
I am
interesting,
now
the different routes.
entering the worm leukemia, or the carcass of the worm leukemia, which Erwin is trying to resurrect to... Oh, Snake, don't do it to me.
It's such a good
No!
one. I hate Rattler Boas. That Rattler Boa enemy that I'm sure is juggling you around is the worst.
I gave up after 2, luckily, so...
Oh, it's bad. However, the leukemia map that Lemur just entered is absolutely beautiful. I love that map.
Mm-hmm.
And I will be
And this stage is pretty much just a gauntlet all the way through. I think it has the most encounters of any stage.
As far as like the speedrun route's concerned, I believe so.
Yeah.
I believe so. It's a lot of fights. I counted all the fights for like every run at some point. That one, pretty sure is by far the most. We do fly the Cancun bird over there. We get to see this bird that we went to its nest once for like 20 seconds. Do you know the lore behind the Cancun bird flying us here? Is there an explanation to that that I don't know of?
Not that I can remember. It's been too long on some of this lore.
Yeah, just kind of wondering. He seems random, but we go to Gato a lot, so why not? And I know we mentioned 3 bosses, and then 4 bosses, and then 5 bosses that can ruin your run.
We get this Selva skip.
However, this would be about the 6th boss that can if you don't get its blind spot, can be.
Oh, I just got in, then I talked to him.
Oh, you got the Selva skip.
Yeah, and then my finger slipped down, and yeah.
All right, Rattler Boa walks to the cockatrice. I guess I'll just spin you guys. Adapting.
So what I was attempting to do there was that NPC clipping we were talking about. We have a couple of lineups that we try to do on Selva there, because if we can get past him, then we save about 5 or so seconds on skipping that dialogue. But you have to get it pretty quickly, otherwise it just ends up being equal or a time loss. Or you can do the worst thing, like I did right there, and you get the clip after struggling for about 5 seconds and then talk to him again.
And then press X for some reason. And we have different lineups for that skip, so it's interesting. But your lineup is mostly around the character's model, isn't it? And most particularly the male, and you're playing the female?
Yeah, I used the little bump in the male's hat, like where it dips back down. I just tried to do that with the female's hair, and it didn't work.
where I use the environment to line up. I can't even get through the door to Selva. Okay.
That door's a little tricky sometimes. I've noticed sometimes it just
and I got the skip
like
immediately. I always get that skip immediately. It feels good. Let's pop off. I've gotten good at Selva skip. You should check out my setup. I don't like to brag, but it works. All right, no Rattler Boa nonsense, please.
You want the double fight? That's always the scariest one.
The Sahagan fight. I already got through the double, and I just didn't want the next one to get me for some reason. Yeah, the double is scary for sure, but we're good. We're past those snakes. Snake's bad. Next snake.
And then Selva skip 2. This one should be a bit easier for me to hit. It's normally a pretty consistent setup. There we go.
The old jump plunge attack on accident. Leapt into the air and pierced the enemy from the skies. Do you fight Irwin with the sword or the hammer?
I normally do sword. I haven't looked into the hammer.
I do hammer every time. I believe the hammer's faster, but it could just be my bias.
I'm not sure. I just like sticking with the sword just because that's what I have been using up to that point.
Yeah, I do the menu after talking. So like immediately when the screen loads to the boss fight, I just menu. Because you're going to do it soon anyway, so... I tried it once on Irwin and I loved it, and I just keep doing it now. So, just curious. So even though we agree on some things in these routes, we do have our own unique strategies to some stuff. So it's fun.
And that's one of the nicer things about the Faerie route too, is it kind of has a few more options for some of those things. Like we do 3 weapon buys, and you can choose whatever weapon you want. I mean, the community has some strong opinions on a couple that we all think are the best, but you know, if you ever want to innovate or just try something new, there's 9 weapon types or something like that.
Is it 9 or is it 8?
I'm not sure. I just kind of made up a number that sounded right.
Knife, 2 swords, 2 axes, hammer, flail, spear, gloves, bow. That's a lot of weapons.
Bow, staff.
Staff, yeah.
Flail.
There's a lot of weapons.
Yeah.
That many.
All right, now we have Irwin. So we talked about blind spots with Boreal Hound, and we have the same strategy for Irwin. Normally it's pretty consistent, as Irwin will just jump right into you and you can immediately start hitting him. But sometimes he likes to jump down, and you gotta watch. Normally he'll jump back up into you, but if he doesn't, you gotta realign, and that's when things get scary.
Not easy to line back up. I'm very bad at correcting that.
Now, as long as I don't drop this cancel, I should be good. And there you have it. That's the big bad boss of the Faerie storyline, and he goes down instantly.
We're prepared for him, especially if we get that blind spot. If you don't get the blind spot, you get to watch some really cool attacks ruin your day.
Yeah, he actually, he's probably one of the longest bosses if you you don't have that trick up your sleeve.
Yeah. He just like some of the other really scary bosses can kind of combo his special techniques one after another, and usually by the time he gets to his second technique, he's using a very powerful, very long animated technique, which is cool. If you're not trying to go fast, it's cool to watch. Maybe I'll show it off. If I show it off, I also might die, so we'll see. Alright, so this is where I'm going to do something different. I'm going to put the hammer on earlier than the Lemur. Blammo, and I'm going to put Counter Strike on. Doing all this right now. So that was my last menu of the game. Hopefully Irwin jumps into me, and I can pummel him with his hammer. He went down, and I don't have the blind spot. Of course, we talk about it, and so it shall happen, and I can't do anything.
I shouldn't have jinxed you, I'm sorry.
No! I got stuck into the wall and couldn't do anything.
An annoying thing with
And
big
he
bosses.
immediately again.
They keep pushing you away.
Well, you guys wanted to see some cool animations. He's going to take 6 years, jump into the background, do exactly what I said I might show you. I avoided the hits, but I can't for the life of me line up a blind spot after I miss it. Wait, I think I got out. You just only use 2 STs first. And done. Okay.
Whew, nice. Good recovery.
Usually if I miss the blind spot, he does like 8 STs.
Yeah.
I haven't had him jump down on me in a while. That sucked.
Yeah, normally if you just stay still, he'll jump back up into you, but sometimes he just, he just doesn't have
I
it.
say it's about 10%. That's my guess. Like 10% of the time, he'll just decide to jump down instead of giving you the freebie.
Hmm.
All right, so this is where we get the end of the Faerie storyline cutscenes. This is one of the only time we get input breaks in the speedrun is during end of storyline cutscenes. This is a good opportunity to kind of discuss what's happening, but also for donations and stuff to be read. If you want to briefly go
Yeah,
over the scenes.
we used to get a few more input breaks with artifact animations, but now that those are no longer in the run, it's pretty much just execution the entire way until this scene. But yeah, we kind of get a bit the end of the Faerie storyline here. We've vanquished Irwin. He's now in the underworld, and we were informed as we got back to Gato that Matilda has also passed away. So Matilda came down to the underworld and spoke with Oberon, who's one of the wisdoms, and essentially was asked to be a wisdom herself. And they're kind of these, powerful wizards and, people of Badiel. And so Matilda has restored her youth, restored her power, and is now coming to talk to Irwin for another time. And you kind of get a lot here of like, these two being star-crossed lovers who were like, two separate worlds, kind of a bit of a Romeo Juliet thing. And, Irwin feels himself this demon who just cannot be a part of the human world and is not allowed to, have love, is only allowed to destroy. And Matilda's essentially pleading with him to, we can embrace each other despite the things we may have done to each other, that kind of thing. And so it's pretty heart-wrenching if you've paid attention to the entire storyline.
Yeah, it is, but at the same time, it was mentioned earlier that Matilda's only 26 years old, but she looks very old and decrepit, and while she may have passed away, that she has some silver linings. Her youth is restored, and she becomes the 7th wisdom of the world. Which is kind of cool, right?
Yeah, I know. I think that the wisdoms play roles in the other mana games too, and I think Matilda is one of them. So it's kind of cool that we get to like see that backstory of how the 7th wisdom came. Yeah.
Yeah. So she may have died, but her life's just beginning again, right? So.
Yeah, and if you actually enter the underworld, you kind of find that death is not the end in this world either. Like your physical form is no longer there, but your spirit still lives on.
Mm-hmm.
But despite all the pleading, Irwin still does not embrace or go with Matilda and just kind of runs away. And we get a very tragic end to their tale. Even though they could have been together, he decided not to.
Yeah, as far as their relationship goes, it's quite the tragic ending for sure. But Matilda comes out with a bold statement that I just read, where she claims to be the universe.
Oh yeah,
I am the universe. Be gone, Shadows.
That is one of my favorite lines in the game.
Great line. I didn't want to overlook that. Now that you finished the scene, like that is a powerful moment for Matilda here. She's just coming into her own and learning her new powers as in her afterlife. It's great. It's a good time. All right, I got another minute or so on my scenes since Erwin hit me with some STs. But carry on.
Yeah, you just saw me leave and re-enter the house. That had to do with some weird home triggers, but this is where all the storylines start to converge.
Converge right at the end.
Yep. Let me equip Lemur. Oop, I did not put on Counter-Strike. I'm trying to talk and do menus at the same time.
Yeah, that'll get you. I missed jump earlier, so we're even on menus now.
There we go. Counter-Strike's on. Yeah, the Cage of Dreams. So our little Sproutling buddy, who if we'd been playing the game normally, we would have seen outside our home constantly, is not feeling too good, but apparently he's going to become one with the mana tree. And yeah, this is where all storylines lead you, is to this. This is how you trigger the end game. And let me not mess up this text box.
Mess it up, mess it
No.
up, mess it up. That text box can be devastating.
Oh yeah, if you had yes there, I think it's a minute and a half loss or something like
Something
that.
like that,
So
yeah. Pokiel is one of the wisdoms that we mentioned. He likes to talk.
yeah, a lot.
A lot.
Oh, don't dizzy me. Okay.
I am heading home, and I am leaving home, and I will be following in your footsteps in a moment.
Yeah, just going back to spin setups now for these fights. The hammer is a good bit stronger than the two-handed sword, but it
One-handed
is
sword.
also a good bit than the one-handed sword. I mean, yeah, but it is a good bit slower as well. So you see, it's really good for these high health mobs where they take a few less spins to kill, but picking up the XP they drop is a little bit longer, which is the main reason that we chose to use the one-handed sword throughout the majority of the run. Is just that when picking up items and XP, you can have such large spreads, and being able to just quickly whip back and forth between all the things you need to pick up helps a lot.
Just started to
But
lose sorcerers.
we've entered that point of the game where things are getting too high level for us not to be using the most powerful weaponry we have. So we find our Sproutling buddy, and he will give us the Sword of Mana.
I will not listen to your stories, Pokiel. Maybe next time. Sword of Mana is
And it
the
is
final
time.
verdict.
Yep, time for the Mana Tree. Every category of this game, except for plat percent, ends once we finish the Mana Tree and the boss at the end.
Yep. Ooh, I did a nice re-entry. Forgot that I need to change my direction.
And this is where some of the monsters start to get pretty beefy, despite how well we've been doing to minimize land levels and mana levels. The Mana Tree doesn't really care about that. It has to be placed no earlier than 19th, and also it has max on all of the mana values, so there's not really much you can do at this point besides just equip yourself with the best weaponry you have and fight through the end.
Yeah, the best you can do is put it as close to home as possible.
Yeah, you can control the land level, that is
Yeah,
correct.
and that's
So,
it.
yeah.
So we put it 2 away from home. We sacrifice 1 in order to make the rest of the run easier. So a lot of theory crafting goes into routing the maps, and typically the mana tree is 1 or 2 away from home. I think it's 2 away from home in all of our NA percents right now, right?
Yes, I
Yeah,
believe
I
so.
think
It used to be one away in June. Yep, it's two. It's two away though.
it's 2
Yep.
now. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
2 away from home in all of them currently, with some new updated routes in the last couple weeks, which is very fun and exciting.
And so, because of the beefier levels of these monsters, I'm going to try to utilize counter a bit more, as you're seeing throughout some of these fights. That's just because the value you get from the one-hit kills on counter really shows here. It can be the difference between killing something in 5 hits and killing something in one. So I try to go for it pretty much whenever I can.
Yeah, I do too. I try to counter every enemy in the tree except the Spring Ball and the Tomato Man. Oh, and the
Yeah, the
Sky Dragon. I don't do the Flying Dragon. Or the
yeah,
Triple
Sky
Dragon
Dragon's a
fight.
little odd.
All right, Triple
Yeah,
Dragon
yeah.
fight too, but you'll see why. That fight we use a special technique. So yeah, Sky Dragon's tough to do. So yeah, there's 3 single enemies where I don't do a counter, or at least try to. Whether or not the enemies work with you, I'm looking at you, Wooding. is a different story.
Oh wow, I've neither of them wanted to attack me until now. Okay, now die. That was a very
The
weird.
land dragon can
Like,
just sit there and breathe fire on you sometimes. That's
yeah,
awkward.
sometimes the wooding will just sit there and not do anything, but
Oh yeah,
normally the punkster likes to at least hit you once. But
yeah. The wooding
he
gets
was
you.
not he was not doing anything in that fight. Okay, Ox, I know you like to attack. Come on. There we go. Basilisk, you too. Oh, gonna do that move? Okay. There we go.
I'm not strong enough to one-shot the land dragon. I had to do a spin.
That's always a little
It's a
awkward.
toss-up.
As long as the Sky Dragon drops XP, it's normally not a big deal. If he drops an item, though, then you lose a touch of time on that. And there's the Blammo on the triple dragon fight. Kills all three of them. 2-item drop, which is nice. Yeah, if all three of those dragons drop XP, you can get the fast pickup, but you have to be dead on with all your movement there. And normally you get a level up, and it just makes it not worth it.
Yeah, somehow we didn't discuss. So the three types of things that can drop are a candy, an experience and money, or an item bag. And they despawn over time in different increments. So the candy despawns the fastest, XP and lucre takes the longest, and the items are in the middle. So when XP and lucre drop, usually we try to collect it all. If an item or a candy drops and the positioning doesn't work out, we will just kind of run away and let it despawn. In that dragon fight that Lemur just talked about, if there's a lot of experience, it's hard to pick it up in time for it to despawn, so it doesn't really benefit you.
Alright, I am in the goddess fight. The final boss of the game is the mana goddess, her dark side. And we are going to do the same thing we tried to do to Dana. Just throw out counters. Oh, can I get the third? No. Now she goes for ST. You will find that the goddess has very happy feet. She loves jumping around side to side, jumping out of your counter damage, and can just be a big pain. But if we can get a good lineup, get her in the corner. Yeah, kind of like that. Oh, nope, she's going to jump. Okay, now I'm kind of hitting her the wrong way. Okay, I think I need one more. Second ST. Unfortunate.
Hammer takes 5 counter strikes.
See if I can get this with the Blammo. And is that time? Time.
Nice. Good job, Lemur.
Thank you.
I just blammoed my dragons. I'll be at the goddess shortly.
And yeah, that is the end of all the categories is that fight, and it can be pretty nerve-wracking in some of these shorter ones because getting a fast fight can save you a lot of time, and she can be really trolly if she wants to.
If you want to see us get trolled the most, have us do dragon percent.
Yes, and Dragon percent we have such weak weaponry that the goddess just
And we have a pet.
has her way with us. Oh yeah. Many things that get in the way.
Yes. Alright, I am entering the goddess fight.
Alright, good luck.
Yeah. Let's see if I can not get too ST'd. Missed my second counter-strike? Okay. Okay. I did the counter-strike and just missed. That's our first ST, and I don't even have Blam already. Let's see if we can get the rest of these before she does another one. Walk into it. Thank you.
Yeah, one of the unfortunate things about using Blam on the dragon fight is you don't typically have it ready for goddess.
Okay, one more. One more. Come on, hit me. She backed up. She backed up away from my last hit. Alright. Am I gonna get a Blammo kill?
Double Blammo kill?
Blammo kill.
There we go, GG.
I split late because I didn't know if it killed, but GG.
Yeah, same thing.
Alright, that's a good run. I wanted to keep my splits up so I can see what my pace was while giving commentary, and a little over 2 minutes behind my PB would still be better than third place, right? So
Yeah, like
good, pretty good
exactly
runs.
2 minutes behind mine, and we both had some funk in our runs that
Yeah,
slowed us both down, and
needless to say.
I think we're still able to keep pretty consistent times, at least for this category.
Yeah, I imagine a 145 estimate is super safe. 140 is
Mhm.
probably safe enough, in my opinion. But um, if we
But
want the
yeah,
buffer,
this was Legend of Mana in the Faerie percent speed run. We're submitting this, we're submitting Dragon, and we're submitting Jumi. We think Faerie will be the best for race, and I think it'll be pretty easy for the audience to follow, especially with some commentary going on.
yeah,
Uh, this is one of those speed games I think is really easy to get into, if not, very difficult to master, but very easy at least to start. And, a lot of things just kind of happens on screen and you can kind of see the attacks and see the fighting game combat kind of going on. And you can see the big attacks from the bosses too. So I think it's pretty easy to follow and pretty easy to see some cool stuff that happens.
yeah. In my opinion, this is has to be one of the best gateway role playing speed runs.
Yeah.
Not only for its ease of execution and getting into it, but also for the resources that we're providing and have on SRC at the time, and just the length of the runs. It's not too long for a role playing game, and yeah,
Mhm.
it's pretty easy to get into and easy to get hooked, especially because we have so many different categories with different routes and it just map planning and all the nuances in the game are just really fun to play around with. Like we didn't even get into the pet system and the forging system that we do in the longer categories. The game has so much to offer. And as far as commentary goes, we will more than likely have a couple of extra hands in the cookie jar for commentary, which might prevent us from having a couple of hiccups.
Yeah, we both tried to do our best at, explaining this, but definitely have another person in to be a little bit more,
Maybe more
I guess
detailed
pointed,
on
detailed.
some
Yeah.
of the on what's going on in some of the events that we miss out on while trying to also play. Um, but you know what, Lemur? I think we did a good job.
Yeah, I think it was a good race, good submission, and I hope anyone watching this enjoyed and please consider us for GDQ.
Yes, thank you for your time. Good job, buddy.
Yeah, GG.